What's up, coaches? Today we're going to go over the new version of the sales script for nutrition coaches. And before I dive into the script, which you'll be able to read, I just want to go over why we use the sales script and how you should use this based off of your level of sales experience. So the reason that we use the sales script is because we need to have a consistent framework to follow in order to identify whether or not our sales process is working and where our sales process may or may not be breaking down. Because if we run every sales call just by the seat of our pants and there's no consistency whatsoever, and 1 month you're killing it and you're having sales coming out your ears, but then the next month it's like you couldn't close a door, well, if there's no consistency to your sales process, it's going to be really hard to evaluate where the framework or the script might be breaking down, where you might not be executing it properly. So it is really important to have this framework. The other thing that's really important with having a sales script is that as a coach, you're selling yourself. You're selling coaching. And the thing that a coach is a coach is a leader. And so if your prospect doesn't feel like you can lead them on a sales call, they're probably going to get this sense that you're not going to be able to lead them as a coach. And so by having a sales script and by having this framework and process that you take them through from day one, a nice, clearly lined out process, they're going to recognize, okay, Matt has clear process. He's a leader. He's the type of person that I can follow and feel like I'm going to get to a result. So it is important as well to maintain leadership throughout the call and to show them from the pre-frame that you are the leader of the conversation. So as we dive in here, it's really important that you have the right mindset going into every single sales call. So you have to detach from the revenue generated by closing. And I know if you're brand new and you're just starting out and you invested in the Build workshop, chances are you're like, oh, I'd really like to get some clients in the door right now so I can start paying off that investment that I just made. And the thing is, if you bring that mindset, if you bring desperation into the sales process, your clients are going to be like, what's that smell? It smells like desperation. I don't think this is a coach that I want to work with, and they're going to head for the hills. So you have to detach from it. If you're a coach who's going through a sales rut, you just can't close a door. Well, you also have to detach from the revenue generated by closing this person. And one of the best ways I know to do that is by creating a pre-call ritual, which we have a training on here in the Build workshop. So if you ignored it, don't ignore it. Go back to it. Create your pre-call ritual. All right. So the other thing that we have to do before the call is have the right logistical considerations. You should have a pen and a notepad, or print this script out, like your version of it, print it out and create space between the questions for you to write notes. Because then you can write notes and you'll be able to see as you're looking down, writing notes, where the script is supposed to flow from there. So that way you don't have to have, your Zoom up here, your script up here, and your notes down here, which is going to be a lot of places for your brain to have to consider. So if you're experienced and you've got this script down, you can have a pen and a notepad, and maybe some notes in the notepad about, the different questions, and leave some space and you can fill those out. You can print the script out, whatever. But you want to have a script handy and you want to have pen and paper to write it down. Don't be taking notes on your computer. I want you to be recording every single call, because if you aren't reviewing your calls, then you're going to miss opportunities to improve on your tonality, on your ability to pause, on seeing how somebody's body language reacted to the way that you asked a question. Reviewing calls is one of the best ways that you can improve your sales process. And if you are really struggling with sales for some reason, then if you don't have recordings of your calls, we can't, our team can't take a look at your calls and tell you where you're going wrong. So you got to make sure to record every call. There's a lot of different ways to do this. If you're on the phone, there's apps called Tape a Call. If you're on Zoom, you can record on Zoom. If you have a screen recording software because you feel weird about recording a call on Zoom, then you can use a screen recording software, whatever. But you've got to be recording your calls, especially early on, because there's a lot of improvement that can be made. The other thing is, obviously, show up as soon as the clock strikes the time that you've scheduled in with your prospect. Super important. You don't want to, right off the bat, have some tech gremlins happen and then you're 5 minutes late to the call. What kind of precedent does that set? They're probably not going to want to work with you. So getting into the script here, part one is establishing rapport. I think a lot of people misunderstand rapport. They think that they've got to go down this rabbit hole of finding connections, talking about sports that they like and all that. And sure, that's going to put them at ease, which is part of what rapport is about. But the problem is if you establish too much rapport and you get into the friend zone, well, the thing is people aren't looking to hire their friend to be their coach. They want to hire somebody who is a leader, who is going to get them the result that they want to get and get them out of pain as fast as possible. So all you really need to do with rapport is quick little small talk question. Hey, Matt, awesome. How's your week? Cool. And the main thing is that you want to be mirroring them. That is the most important part of rapport. So if they talk a lot with their hands like this, then when you get on the call, you want to start talking with your hands as well. If they're really upbeat and giddy, hey, Matt, so nice to meet you, blah, 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 blah. Then you want to be like, awesome, yeah. Kate, so nice to meet you too. I'm really looking forward to the call. Where are you calling in from? And if they're, the Eeyore type, like, oh, yeah, hey, Matt, thanks so much for taking the time today to talk to me. Funny enough, the wedding celebrant that I had, that's exactly how she talked. But that aside, if you're going to be talking, if you have someone like Margaret on the other side, like, oh, yeah, thanks, Matt, I really appreciate it. Then you'd be like, yeah, Margaret, I really appreciate you coming on the call too. Are you ready to dive in? Nice, match their tonality. And then from there, you need to frame the call and immediately take leadership. So if they come in and they're like, okay, so I got a bunch of questions for you, blah, 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 blah. You've got to immediately grab it, be like, awesome, we can get to questions at the end. Do you mind if I just take a second to explain how this call is going to go? So you've got to grab leadership from the beginning. Most people, they're just looking for you to lead. So that's why you want quick rapport. And then you want to make sure that they understand what's going to happen. So just pretty much read that word for word. Memorize that. Don't even bother trying to ad-lib it. Just do it. Because ultimately, this is set up this way for a reason. So you get a yes once you ask them if everything sounds good. And then you've got to figure out why did they book in. And the reason we've got to figure out why they booked in is because that's going to give you some gold. That's going to give you some of the threads that you can follow to figure out, okay, they booked in for a reason. It was important enough for them to take the time out of their day to talk with you. What's the reason behind that? And if you can dig into that, you're probably going to find their deeper desires, their deeper pains. And then if you are painting your offer using what you found there as the solution, then it's going to be an easy enrollment as long as they are qualified. So you want to ask them what motivated you to take the time out of your day to chat with me, or if you're running ads, it'd be like, hey, what about my marketing inspired you to book in the call today? If you haven't had a triage or anything like that. And from there, whatever threads they give you, you want to follow them and clarify. So if they're like, oh yeah, I just saw that post that you made in the group the other day, and it really just spoke to me because I've been struggling so much with just restricting myself all day, and then I just binge eat at night. And the post that you made just really spoke to me. And it's like, boom, I know that they're binge eating, they're restricting themselves, blah, 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 blah. So I want to go deeper. So it's like, so when you say that you're binge eating at night, what do you mean? And from there, it's like you might want them to tell you more about that. And then from there, you are going to want to ask them like, oh, how long have you been dealing with that binge eating? And from there, we're going to go into deeper discovery once we figure out which ones are the real threads we want to follow in particular. Because the goal here is you need to start discovering some pain that's related to their offer or to your offer. So if you didn't find it here, like this is a way to go deeper into it and find how there's pain that might relate to the pillars or phases of your offer. And we also need to expand the pain so they can see the real cost of inaction. So if they're like, oh, I really just want to lose 10 pounds and that's all you can get here, it's like, we want to use this to expand that. It's like, okay, well, nobody ever in the history of humankind has ever wanted to lose 10 pounds naturally. There's nothing about the way that a human being is wired that would make us want to lose 10 pounds. What we really want is let's say to be more sexy, because it's like primal, we want to attract a mate. It's like we might want to perform better because it's like sense of achievement. There's going to be these basic human needs, and people think that the how they're going to get there is by changing their body. They think that in order to be more confident, they have to lose weight. So we really need to expand their pain or their vision. It's not, I want to lose 10 pounds. That is how they think they're going to get to the thing that they actually want. And that's what we have to uncover here in the deeper discovery and pain expansion, is not just, oh, I want more confidence, but okay, why do you want more confidence? Like, is it something at work? Is it, trying to find a girlfriend? Like, why do you feel like you need more confidence? So these are some of the questions that we can ask. You can lead into this with more of a general question. And you can use this format to ask a question related to your offer. So it's like, so Matt, how would you describe your current situation with your health? Or, so Matt, how would you describe your current situation with your performance in the gym? Whatever, might be a pillar of your offer. One really good one that I want to point out here to ask about is stress. Because one of the biggest stressors in most people's lives is finances. And so if you ask them how their current situation is with stress, then you might be able to see like, hey, what are your top 1 to 2 things that are stressing you out in your life right now? And if finances happens to be one of them, that's where we can take a look and clarify what the source of their money stress is. And this is going to help you understand a little bit more whether or not they're financially qualified. And it'll really get you to understand whether or not you need to pre-handle money objections before you make your offer. So just something I want to point out there. But you want to ask them their current situation with maybe 1 or 2 things related to your offer. And then from there, this is how we expand it. So it's like, hey, Matt, so, how is that lack of confidence that you have, or how is that yo-yo dieting affecting you with work or something like that, especially if you've discovered it from why they booked in. And we also want to figure out if they've got a plan now to fix this and whether or not it's working. Because if somebody's like, oh yeah, well, I was really just kind of interested in, I'm doing this 5-day challenge that I saw online, but I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do. If they have a plan, we want to see whether or not they are 100% confident in it. And we want to see if we can show them that there's some doubt that what they're doing isn't going to get them where they want to go. So that's essentially what we're figuring out here. And then this question's a really important one. How much longer does this have to keep going on before you decide it's unacceptable? So it's like, how much longer do you have to be in this yo-yo dieting cycle before you decide it's unacceptable? Like, how many more diets are you going to have to go on and fail before you're like, this is unacceptable, I need to stop, or I need something that works? And then from there, once they're like, oh, well, I'd rather not have to go through that ever again, then you want to just kind of double check. So if there was a plan that could help you stop yo-yo dieting forever, what would your timeline be for getting started with something like that? And you're going to kind of get their urgency early on. Discover whether or not you need to expand that and figure out why it might not be urgent right now. Because if it's not urgent right now, you're probably not even going to want to make an offer, and you probably want to send them a resource, get off the call, nurture them, get them on a call later. Now, next spot is we want to figure out where they want to go once we've uncovered the pain. So you can make it really lighthearted. You can be like, awesome, thanks for taking the time to be really vulnerable there with me, Matt. Let's get into the fun part of the call. I know that was a bit of a downer, but where do you want to be with your performance in the next 12 months? And then you're going to start getting their goals. And from there, that's where we're going to expand their vision and show them that by achieving that vision, they're not just, completing their first Olympic triathlon, they're actually proving to themselves and to their father that, they're worthy or something like that. So it's like, I'm curious, have you thought about what would change for you when you complete your first Olympic triathlon? Or have you considered what would change for you when you do lose those 10 pounds? This is a really good question for expanding their vision. And you want to be asking them, do you know your why? The real reason driving you to make that change. And that's another way to dive deep into, if they're just telling you, yeah, I'd really like to lose the last 10 pounds. It's like, okay, why? Do you know your why? That thing that we're going to be able to use to motivate you when you're feeling like you don't want to do the work so that we can actually get you to your goals. And, this is a really good question that you can play with. And another way to expand it, if you want, is if you realize that they feel like their lack of confidence is when you're in the pain digging, they feel like their lack of confidence is hurting their ability to get a promotion, or their lack of confidence is hurting their ability to get a girlfriend or something like that. Then you can ask them, so how do you think losing those 10 pounds would actually help you with your confidence at work? Or how do you think that completing your first Ironman would help you with, finding a girlfriend in the triathlon community, something like that. And once we have a good understanding of their vision and it's been expanded, then it's time to move into showing them the cost of inaction, as well as why they can't really do it alone. And we want to get into some of the temperature checks. These temperature checks are going to help you understand where the objections might come from, whether or not you want to make an offer right away, or you might want to nurture a little bit longer. When you're first starting out, start making offers, get the practice in. But if you're more advanced, you can use these temp checks to determine how to proceed. So what we need to do, pretty much just read this. So it sounds like right now, you're currently 10 pounds overweight. You're feeling like that's really, killing your confidence, and that's actually decrease your performance at work. But you'd really love to be able to lose those 10 pounds so that you've got more confidence. You're showing up more authentically at work. You can land that promotion if you want. So what do you feel like is stopping you from getting to that beautiful vision that you painted for me on your own? And this question's gold because it's asking them, why don't you think you can get there on your own? And so it's immediately pre-handling the objection of, maybe I should just try myself for a little while. And so they're going to either answer, I don't know. Pretty much, they're going to say like, I don't know. I just, I've tried and tried and tried, and I just haven't been able to do it on my own. And I'm just feeling really lost. So, that's essentially, I don't know how I would do it on my own. Or they'll be like, well, the thing is, I think just by following this plan that I could finish my first marathon. But I just feel like I could finish that marathon a lot faster if I had the right help, or, I feel like I could get there faster with a proven plan. And from there, once they give you an answer like that, then just be like, yeah, I see. So if you don't get help, sorry, my tonality was off there. So it's like, yeah, I see. So if you don't get help, where do you imagine you'll be 12 months from now? And then they might be like, I'm going to be in the same situation, blah, 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 blah. And if they don't tell you how that's going to feel, just be like, yeah, and how would it feel for you to be in the same situation that you're in right now in 12 months? And, that's where we lead into the temp checks. So essentially, you're going to read these out with urgency. They're going to go, yeah, I feel really bad, blah, 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 blah. So then from there, you're like, okay, yeah, it doesn't sound like that's where you'd want to be 12 months from now. So if there were a proven process to guide you towards losing those 10 pounds in the next 90 days, when would you want to get started with that? And if they're like, I'd need to wait until after Christmas, blah, 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 then you'd be like, yeah, so why do you feel, because this is where you start to pre-handle objections, is with temp checks. And if they say that, you'd be like, got it. So why is it that you would want to put off feeling more confident and losing that weight another 2 months? And you're going to start to understand it, and you can maybe pre-handle it, figure out whether or not it is actually like a legitimate thing where it's like, I'm going out into the Amazon for the next 2 months with no internet whatsoever, and all the food that's going to be provided for me is, outside of my control. It's like, okay, well, logistically, there's absolutely no point to that person getting nutrition coaching. But if there's no logistical reason and they're just like, I just want to take some time to eat all the foods that I really like right now before I get started with a nutrition plan and I have to be restrictive, then you can be like, okay, well, what if you were able to still eat those foods while we're working together? And you can start to ask questions to see whether or not that would change their circumstances. Because sometimes it's just like this emotional, it's a fear-based thing. That's the reason that they'd want to wait. Same with finances. If you're like, cool, and if this process, this proven process could help you get to losing those 10 pounds and feeling more confident in the next 90 days, is it something you'd be willing to invest both time and money into? And you might get an answer like, yeah, it just depends, how much time, or it depends on how much it costs and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I'd be willing to invest. Cool. But if they're like, oh, I'm in a really tight financial situation, blah, 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 then you'd be like, got it. Well, I know it sounds like you're in a tight financial situation now, but does that mean that you wouldn't be able to have the funds to invest into something that would help you get there right now? And if they don't, then there's kind of no point in making the offer just yet. And with the timing, you do want to make sure that there's nothing that would prevent them from taking action. You might have already uncovered that in the urgency. That's why this is last. You don't necessarily have to ask this, but this essentially pre-handles the time objections. Like, oh, now's not the right time, blah, blah, blah. If they tell you, oh, well, I'm going on vacation for a week, then you might help them see that having a coach while they're on vacation is helpful. So these temp checks are really helpful to anticipate and pre-handle objections before you go to the close. Next thing that we're going to do is moving towards the close. What we want to do once we've got these temp checks done, you'd be like, cool, well, because this seems really important to you right now, and it sounds like something where I can definitely help you get to those 10 pounds lost. Would you like me to show you how? And you get their consent. You're going to do a 60-second overview of your program and how it relates to their pains. So this is a good format you can use. Yeah, so Matt, based on what we talked about, my 6-month coaching program called Beyond Macros is the best way to help you lose those 10 pounds, feel more confident, and overcome that binge eating cycle, so that ultimately, if you want to go out this summer and, find a girlfriend, you can. So how does that sound? They'll be like, good, how's that work? Something like that. And then from there, that's where you're going to go into explaining your program. So be like, cool, well, the coaching is 100% custom to your needs. We want to make sure they understand it's bespoke, but it's not random. Over the next 6 months, we're going to address 4 main pillars, which will move you quickly towards your goal of losing 10 pounds, feeling more confident, and finding that life partner. So you're going to go through explaining each pillar briefly, very briefly, but tying it into their pain and desires. So, it might be like, hey, so Matt, in the first phase, what we're going to do is we're going to be creating a custom nutrition plan for you based off of what your biofeedback is currently telling me. So I'm going to take a look at what's going on in your body right now. And instead of just making a random plan for you, I'm actually going to make one that is completely custom for you. That way you can lose 10 pounds actually rather quickly. And then from there, you can be like, do you see how that's necessary in order to reach your 10-pound weight loss goal? They'll be like, yeah, definitely. And then from there, you want to ask this question. You're like, awesome. So just so I know, why do you feel like that will be effective for you? And you're going to repeat this process for every phase or pillar of your program. As soon as you've wrapped up the last, third or the fourth pillar, you'll be like, awesome. So with those 4 pillars, you'll quickly move towards your 10-pound weight loss goal. But I just wanted to check in to see if you feel anything is missing in terms of what you needed. Because the thing is, you are providing one-on-one nutrition coaching. If they need something and you can provide it, then add it in here. You don't want there to be any question in their mind that you can help them. You told them it's 100% custom to their needs, but if they all of a sudden think that the 4 phases is all they're getting, then they might bring something up. So if they bring something up, just remind them, yeah, awesome, Matt. So, like I said, this is 100% custom coaching. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you to your goal. And as long as it's within your scope and realistic, whatever they ask for, just be like, yeah, we can definitely work on that. How do you see that working? Or, what do you feel like you would need in order to, feel like that's being delivered? And you can essentially create it for them and with them, creating the plan with them. They're going to feel, wow, this is really, really bespoke, really custom. So if they're just like, no, nothing's missing, then you can just leave a pause, they'll be like, no. And you want to give them some time to process. And so, just let them process for a little bit, but don't overcook it. If you overcook it and you're just sitting there staring awkwardly and they're staring at you just like, then you can always ask, great. So have you had time to process all that? Like, yep, awesome. Where do you want to go from here? And then from there, that's where we're collecting money. They're probably going to be asking the investment. You let them know the investment for the Beyond Macros program, which will help you quickly move towards that 10-pound weight loss goal and, stop that binge eating cycle, is just $6,000. This is where you shut up until they say something. This is where you can overcook the silence because it's never overcooked. You've done your part. Ball's in their court. And they're either going to ask about the next steps to get started or bring up their concerns. And if they want to get started, this is exactly what you say. If they raise concerns, take a look at the objections. You're really only going to get time, money, or spouse objections in some way, shape, or form. So we've got a bunch of objection handling stuff in here, or concern management in here, as well as another training. And I've got the follow-up call frame because you can't expect a one-call close every single time. Follow-ups are completely normal. I'd say the majority of you probably came in on your second call or on a follow-up call. So you need to, in order to get people onto the follow-up call instead of canceling ahead of time, you need to take the pressure off of making a decision on the follow-up call. Otherwise, they're either going to not show up, they're going to cancel 5 minutes before and say, hey, I decided that it's not right for me. Sorry, I got to cancel the call. And they might just, ghost you. So instead of putting that pressure on, I'll usually let them know this exactly. This is how I frame up a follow-up call. I pretty much tell them, hey, listen, we can set up a follow-up call for Wednesday. On the call, there's no pressure to make a decision, but ultimately, I just want to make sure you have all the info you need to make a decision. So between now and then, just write down your questions and concerns. I'll answer them on that call. And you can either let me know, yeah, Matt, I should have signed up yesterday with you, or no, this program isn't right. Or you can even tell me, hey, listen, I need another day to make a 100% decision and process what we just talked about. Sound good? And then if they say, yep, sounds good, book them in. You never want to finish a triage call, a mini market research, a sales call without booking in the next exposure or the next call. So hope this makes sense. If you have any questions about this process, just let me know. Happy to answer them for you. Much love, y'all.